You and your family love the beach and decide to spend a weekend at an isolated beach cabin. Your teenage daughter often gets bored on your getaways, so you make plans to take your niece along. As soon as you arrive, a storm is looming on the horizon and the water looks rough. You tell the girls they can get ready to swim, but to come back and help unload the car. They are so excited they do not pay attention to the last part of what you say and run down to the beach to swim. You do not realize they have done so until you hear your daughter scream. You realize they are both caught in a strong current and might be swept out to the sea. You are a good swimmer and know you can save one of them. You have a difficult choice to make. Do you save your niece first as she is a poor swimmer and will not be able to last as long as your daughter? Do you save your daughter first because although she is a stronger swimmer and may be able to last long enough for you to come back after saving your niece, you cannot stand the idea of losing her?
Man, that's a really tricky one.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those times where I'm just gonna use the get out of jail button. Just be like, oh, either way, it's morally acceptable. But man, it's such a tricky one, and I feel like the scenario itself is a little ambiguous because with the way with the information that they give you, I don't know how much of a good swimmer my daughter is. Like, is it like probably I'll be able to come back and get her? Is it like there's a good chance I'll be able to come and get her? Or is it like a slim chance that I can save both by doing that versus saving your daughter and having no chance of saving your niece, basically? So that one, I'd be more inclined to say either goes. Honestly, I don't know what I would do. I might be a little bit more inclined to save the niece a little bit because I feel like somebody else's child, like, I don't know, if somebody entrusts me with their child, I feel like that's a greater responsibility to some extent, especially when my daughter has a better chance of surviving if I save the niece first than if I were to save my daughter first and then go back for the niece.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm leaning a little bit more towards the niece one, but either way, I could definitely see how somebody could justify it morally. 100%.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and also like the choice you think you will make. And for me, yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors that are not addressed, and I think for me to make the decision here, it would be very difficult without knowing those things. Like I don't know just how strong of a swimmer I am. Like how confident am I in being able to save both of them? I don't know how strong of a swimmer my daughter is. It doesn't really tell you if there's slim chance or no chance, like you were saying. And I think other factors that are also important are also like, how strong is your relationship with like the niece? How strong is the relationship between you and her parents? Maybe the kind of person your wife is, her personality, how would she react if you make either of those decisions that could very easily influence what you would do. And there are just different factors that could alter the decisions you make that they just don't address at all. So without thinking about all of those, it honestly is very difficult for me to make the decision, as opposed to as in regards to what I think is morally okay. Well, that's also very difficult for me to do because I think it's just very subjective when it comes to morality overall. So, which is a topic we're gonna get to. But yeah, for me, it's hard to say. I haven't really thought about the position Lorenzo took it, which is kind of having a greater responsibility when you're taking care of someone else's child.
I feel like a lot of that is just kind of my personal opinion of it, I feel like a lot of that just comes down. Maybe it's just because I'm a coach, a gymnastics coach and whatnot. So I feel like I'm responsible for a lot of kids very often that, obviously aren't mine. So maybe that's a part of it. But the more I think about it, the more I think that there isn't really a morally impermissible option here, Yeah. I don't know if there's like a right option either. I feel like this is just one of those situations where like either way it goes, at least for me personally.
Yeah, and I totally feel the same about it. What about you,
Hmm.
Raymond?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you guys. Um, I don't know. I personally would save the niece first because there is a chance, like you could
Hmm.
save your daughter as well. Through
Like
that,
there's a
so
better
like
chance, yeah.
yeah, so by taking my chances, I like to risk it and go with option two because um I could like the idea of me being able to save two people, um, I guess, is better than just saving one.
Yeah.
So,
Just
and like
adding on to, oh yeah, continue, Ray,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying like I agree with like um, your take on the responsibility of someone else's child as well. Um, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, the more I'm thinking about it, the more like I guess I'm formalizing it in my brain and thinking back to like my philosophy class and all the different ways we laid stuff out and whatnot. If we go back to like a sort of pro versus cons kind of thing, but not really. Like if I do option A, what happens? Option B, what happens? Or what could happen? If I go save my daughter, the chances that I can save both are I'm assuming are quite a bit lower. So the chances either way, right? You'll save one, right? You'll save one either way. But if you save the niece, the chances that you save both are much higher. At
Mm-hmm.
least from the way the article makes it sound. Again, we don't know exactly by how much more likely you are to save both. But with saving the niece being the option that has the highest likelihood of saving both, I feel like you could maybe make an argument that that's a morally like man, what's the term? Obligation, like, almost like a moral obligation for you to save the niece first,
Yeah.
as well as like you have that same sort of deal where it's like, oh, somebody else's kid versus my kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I still
Yeah.
think it could go either way. I wouldn't really fault somebody for saving their own daughter because of that
Yeah.
sentimental value. Kind of like how the
Yeah.
trolley problem with the wife and the mom kind of thing. Same sort of situation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's very interesting what you said because mathematically, if you're saying saving the if you're saving the daughter, you're saving one person, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
run through the same scenario every single time, you're only saving one person, right? But if
Does
you
it does
save
it say that it does it say explicitly that if you save the daughter, the niece will die? I don't think it ever
Well,
says that
it says
it
we'll probably die.
will
Yeah.
probably. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the
Yeah.
thing. I think there's
so,
always that
so
slim off chance, but who knows?
I'm just
Yeah.
saying mathematically,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I see
the
what you mean.
like one of them is just gonna be like if you're saving the daughter, okay, with the probably, so it's like 1 point just over, like just over one
Mm-hmm.
point, right? But if you're choosing to save the niece, your daughter is a stronger swimmer, then if you're running the scenario, right, the probability, like, well, the amount of people you're gonna save like it's gonna be like higher, it's gonna be like
Uh
close
huh.
to maybe like
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly
1.5
what I
or
was getting
something,
at.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying. I just haven't really thought about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally understand why some people might think because of that there is a moral obligation to do it. Yeah, very interesting. And I think to just add on to my answer, because I'm giving a little bit more thought, mostly because of what Raymond was saying. Um, and once again, to go back to kind of the answer I gave before about the trolley problem, it comes down for me about kind of how I would feel about myself. And for this, once again, it doesn't give that much information, so I wouldn't really know. But for me to come down to an answer, it's like, would I hate myself more if I risk it and let my daughter die? Or would I hate myself more if I know that I didn't even try to save the niece first?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's true.
when I know the niece is a weak swimmer and has a much higher chance of just dying, right? So I think it really comes down to that for me,
Mm-hmm.
and
I feel
for
like
me
that's a
to
really good argument.
yeah,
I like that.
say what can you live with more, you know?
Got to minimize the regrets, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's such a huge part. If you're
Yeah,
Yeah.
living with regrets, the quality of your life is
it's no good.
no good, man.
Yeah, I feel like Yeah. But on that same token, maybe you could be like, later on the line, somebody else might say, like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I let my niece die, but, my daughter's so precious to me. I
Mhm.
think there was no other option, right? Or,
Yeah.
or the other way around, if you go to save the niece and you lose your daughter, somebody might be really distraught by that and be like, oh, I should have gone for my daughter first. What was I thinking? Whereas some
Huh?
other people might be like, okay, man, like I'm really bummed. I lost my daughter, but
Yeah.
maybe years down the line, you see like the niece go to like university or whatever, and like they have their own life. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? At the end of the day, it was a hard decision. Obviously, it could have turned out better, but I don't regret making that decision. Some people might be able to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really depends on like kind of what you think you value more in terms of like um just kind of like I was saying, what you think you would be able to live with more based off of your
Mhm.
values.